All right, this is the Spot Guy. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about pressure switches. We're going to talk about pressure switches primarily, but I also want to talk about a pressure switch as opposed to a flow switch, because sometimes you'll hear people say, they'll say something about a flow switch. This is the difference. A pressure switch screws in, and the idea is this is a safety device. So the purpose of this is so when the tub doesn't know if it's got water in it or not. So if it's full of water, the pump comes on, it powers up, it puts pressure on this switch, it tells the system that it is okay to fire the heater. That way you don't get dry fires from no water movement in the tub. So if the pump didn't come on for some reason, even if the switch was good, it may give you an FL code, an FLO code, FLO1, FLO2. There's all kinds of different codes depending on the system and the type of tub. The flow switch works off a similar principle, but the idea is instead of it working off of pressure, it works off of water movement. The water pushes it and closes it like that right there. No water, water. And it's a normally open switch on either one of them. And basically what it does is it simply closes. So there's no polarity. It doesn't matter A or B. When you put the two wires on, it's a normally open switch. When you measure across it, if the pump comes on, you should be able to measure continuity across it. It's just that simple. If you cannot measure continuity across it, then there's something wrong inside the switch. The pump didn't come on. It's not enough movement to close the switch, something of that nature. The other thing is some of them have adjustments on them. These are factory preset adjustments. And this is an example of this one installed already on a heater. This is factory preset. If there's not enough water movement that you have to adjust this to make it close, I do not recommend ever adjusting these. If you have to adjust this to make it close, then there's something else wrong. You've got a stopped up filter. The pump is a 230 volt pump that's only wired 115. There's something called in the impeller that's impeding the water movement. Like you could have I've seen bikini bottoms, I've seen leaves, I've seen all kinds of stuff caught in the impeller. The pump's turning, but it's not moving enough water to close this switch. So adjusting this switch is not an alternative. That's a last resort. If you have to adjust this, there's something else wrong usually. The other thing is there's different styles. I sell this as a universal style. This will fit in just about any one of these applications. You can see this is a Balboa one that's got the metal style with the cage on it. This will screw right back in there and work perfect. And this is low voltage. This is not high voltage in these kinds of things. So it's not something that will shock you if it was on the outside. This is another example. This right here, this one would take the place of this one. It would also take the place of, this is a Gecko S-Spa pack. It would take the place of this one. You can see from the factory is actually basically the same pressure switch. All you would do is lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, unhook your wires. Of course, cut your water off so you don't get water on the board and that kind of stuff. And the way you put your Teflon tape, you seal these with Teflon tape, is I hold it in my right hand, I put the tape on and hold it, and I screw it right, just like I'm screwing it in. If you put it on the other way, if you put it on backwards, and you see that makes a beautiful seal right there. If you screw it on the other way, what will happen is as you screw it in, it will undo the Teflon tape. And a lot of times on this style, if they're bad, you can hear something rattling inside. You can see this doesn't make any noise. This is a 1 amp. This fits almost everything out there. This is universal. This is a 25 amp. Still 1-inch MPT, which if you measure across the outside of the threads, even though we call it, or 1/8 inch MPT I should say, even though we call it 1/8 inch MPT, it actually measures about 3/8 across the edge of the threads, and they are tapered. They get thicker as they go down. That's a standard size on just about every pressure switch. So if you unscrew it, the hole that you will see in there in any of these is going to be 1/8 inch MPT. And it looks like that right there. You can see that it's going to measure about 3/8 across. The difference is this is a 25 amp, this is a 1 amp, meaning that the heater on a 115 volt system can actually go through this pressure switch. There's some old air button systems where the heater's actually powered through this. So the way it works is if it calls for heat, the thermostat actually turns the pump on. The pump movement closing this switch actually turns the heater on. It actually runs through the pressure switch. That's old school. You're not going to really see that in 230 volt systems, not normally. It's very rare, so very rarely will you need this type, the 25 amp. Usually you're going to need a 1 amp. So if you will look right here and click, you will find this pressure switch, the 1 amp style. Now, if you look right here and click, you will find the 25 amp style. Remember, this is old school. This is air button. And lastly, if you click right now, you will find the main page with all the different styles on it. So, order with confidence. If you need a pressure switch, if you have an FLO code, of course, the first thing is not going to be the pressure switch. The first thing is filter. Power down, pull the filter out, power back up and see if it clears up. Make sure there's nothing in it that can be pulled down into the filter while it's out. If that doesn't do it, make sure the pump's coming on. If the pump doesn't come on, you've got to address that before you address this. So basically the way you would do it is everything comes on, pump's on, filter's good, you've got good water movement, you put a meter across this and it is open, the pressure switch is bad. If you put a meter across this and it is closed, unplug the pump, see if it opens. If it does, then this is good, that's not your issue. Then it would be a board issue of some sort. The wire's not good from here to there, a connection issue. It's not calling for heat. You've got it set at 80 and it's 90, something of that nature. So there's one more thing I wanted to address, and that is pressure switch as opposed to M7. M7 is 2 sensors on each end of a heater. You're going to find it only in Balboa systems. M7 does not require a pressure switch. The idea behind this is it's looking, you know, we talked about pressure switches looking for water movement. This looks for water movement based off of the temperature raised between the 2 sensors. So basically when this thing fires up, it will fire the heater for about 8 seconds. It is designed to look for a 3-degree raise between these 2 temperature sensors. If it doesn't see a 3-degree raise, it thinks there's no water in the tub. If you have water in the tub and you have water movement, for instance a circulation pump, the circulation pump requires about 25 gallons per minute to go between these 2 sensors in order to operate this system. So the circulation pump could be bad, slow, a 230 volt one wired 115 volt, filter stopped up. There's a lot of things that will cause this as well. But don't order a pressure switch if you have an M7 system, and don't order M7 sensors if you have a pressure switch unless you have like a 2000 LE system which uses one M7 sensor. Generally the sensor is going to give you a sensor code, a SN, something like that. Pressure switch is going to give you an FL code. Buy with confidence. I am the Spa Guy. We are Hot Tub Parts of America.